Alright guys, so we are going to start with the bottom of our feet. You can use either a tennis ball or a baseball or a lacrosse ball. Obviously, the harder the object is, the more it's going to be uncomfortable. So I would start off with a tennis ball if your feet are pretty tender. So you're just going to start by setting the ball on the ground and then just rolling all different parts of your feet all the way from your toes to your heel. I'll usually stick to about 30 seconds on each side. Alright, so next, after we get our feet, we're going to move up our body to our calf muscles. So I like to do this one leg at a time. So you're just going to start by sitting on your butt, placing both hands behind you, and then lifting your butt off the floor, and then just rolling up and down your calf, trying to hit different angles. So I like to point my toes in and then point them out to hit different angles of the calf muscle. Alright, so moving on to our peroneal muscles. These are the muscles on the side of our lower leg, so right next to our calf. To get in position for this, we're going to start on our elbow with our hips on the ground, positioning that foam roller right in the middle of our lower leg. From there, we're lifting those hips off the ground and then just rolling up and down. I usually stick to the upper half of the lower leg and just rolling up and down there. This one can be a bit challenging just because you kind of have to hold a side plank for this. So just making sure you have your elbow and your top hand supporting you as you do this one. Alright guys, so after the peroneal muscles, we're going to move up the leg to the quads, so the front of the thigh. We're going to start by getting in our plank position from the elbows and then just rolling out both legs at the same time, all the way from right above your knee to the bottom of your hips. If you want to make this one a little more challenging or put a little more pressure on your leg, you can elevate one of your legs off the foam roller or just kind of put it to the side of the foam roller, so you're only going to do one side at a time. Again, with this one, just like the other ones, I usually like to stick for about 30 seconds on each side if you're doing one side at a time, or you can do a little bit more time if you're doing both legs at the same time. After we finish with the quads, we're going to move to our IT band on the side of our thigh. So kind of getting back into that side plank position that we were doing for the peroneal muscles. So just starting out, like you see here, I have my top leg staggered forward. That's going to take a little bit of pressure off of that leg. If you want to make it a little bit more challenging, you can stack those legs on top of each other. And again, we're rolling for about 30 seconds all the way from the top of the knee all the way to the bottom of the hip. Alright, so next moving on to the hamstrings on the back of the legs. I like to do one at a time with this one. Again, if your legs are a little more tender, you can do two at a time. Setting up for this one, you're just going to sit on your butt with your hands behind you. From there, lifting your butt off the ground and then just rolling all the way from the bottom of your butt to the back of your knee. And just like how we rolled our calf, I like to turn my toes in and out just to hit different angles of the hamstring. In particular, kind of turning them in will get that inner part of the hamstring, which is usually pretty tender. Next, we're moving to the inside of the thigh, so we're getting our groin or our adductor muscles. So we're going to start kind of like we did with the quads in that front plank position, positioning that foam roller perpendicular to our leg, and then just rolling all the way from the knee all the way up to the hip. You'll probably find that the most tender areas here are right above the knee. So if you find an area like that that's pretty tender, I like to stick in that spot for 5 to 10 seconds and just really sit there. Again, just like the other ones, we're rolling for about 30 seconds on each side. Alright, so once we are finished with our groin, we are going to move on up the body to the glutes. So starting by sitting on the roller, we're going to slightly lean to one side going down to the elbow, and then we're just rolling one butt cheek at a time here. If you want to put your glutes on a bit more of a stretch, you can just elevate that foot up onto your knee, or you can just keep that leg straight and just rolling for about 30 seconds here on each side. All right, so after we finish with our glutes, we're going to move on up to our upper back. So we're going to start by positioning that foam roller right around the middle of our back. We're going to try to avoid rolling over the lower back, and then we're just rolling all the way from the middle of the back to our shoulder blades. With this one, I also like to either do an overhead stretch, kind of like you see here, or the bear hug, which you're just giving yourself a big bear hug, which you're protracting or pulling apart your shoulder blades, and then just rolling like that. Next, we move on to our lat muscles, so that big chunk of muscle right on the side of your back. For this, we're going to kind of start like we did for the upper back, so positioning that roller right around the middle of your back, leaning to one side, reaching behind you with your arm, and then rolling all the way from the middle up to right under your shoulder. With this one, you'll probably find that the spot right under your shoulder is going to be the most tender. So again, if you find a really tender spot, just kind of stick in that spot for about 10 seconds and just sit there. Alright, so after we are finished with the big foam roller, we're going to go ahead and grab either our baseball or our tennis ball again, find a spot of wall, and we're going to get our pec muscles. So you're just going to place that ball in between your pec and the wall, and then I like to get kind of low, so bend my knees so I can really put a lot of my body weight into that ball. And then from there, you're just rolling around your chest, trying to find the tender areas, and then just doing that for about 30 seconds on each side. You'll probably find that the most tender area is going to be right up where your shoulder meets your pec. All right, lastly, we are moving on to our traps. So again, you can use the baseball or the tennis ball for this. Positioning that ball between your traps, so I'd say right above your shoulder blades and right below your neck, that big kind of chunk of muscle that usually gets tight when you're sitting down all day or sitting at the computer hunched forward. So again, getting low with this one, bending those knees so you can really push your body weight into that ball. This one's probably going to be pretty tender, so starting with a tennis ball is not a bad idea. As you can see, I am grimacing in this video. So yeah, just rolling out, I'm kind of moving all around the upper back and finding those tender spots.